Good morning and welcome to Eye Openers. It is so wonderful to have you guys here tuning in with us, and great to have you as well, Shafayet. Thanks for being
Thank you.
on.
Good
Yeah.
morning.
Well, as you guys know, with this show would not be what it is without my eye-opening favorite beverage of choice, coffee. And while I do believe that coaching and the work we do and the conversations we have on this show really do create a lot of eye-opening experiences, so does my caffeinated morning beverage. So that is where I like to start. Tell me, Shafayet, what are you drinking in the morning? Or is it morning where you are?
It is. Yes, it is. Well, we just ended morning, right? So it's
Okay.
12 o'clock on the East Coast. But caffeine can always be had, right? Especially in busy workday. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm having coffee and my BB-8 cup. Kudos to Star Wars, a little nod there. And yeah, it's just a medium roast, ground and blended with just a slight bit of almond creamer. That's how I like to have my
Okay.
coffee. Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah.
Yes, so I've seen the gamut here about what people love to drink, and I'm with you. I'm a pretty straightforward, like I like a little bit of a bolder roast, but this is a special mug for me. So
Okay.
um, these islands are just off the coast in Oahu in Hawaii.
Mm,
I went to school there, but I met my husband on this beach, and I got to take a trip back there in November of last year, so recently, and it had been like 8 years or something since I'd been to Hawaii, and it is just an absolutely magical place. I said I have to get a mug so that I can visit it kind of every morning and remind myself of one of my favorite spots. So, have you
perfect.
ever tried bulletproof coffee?
No, I have not.
So this is kind of my thing, and some of my other guests also partake in it, but it
Okay.
has some like, um, I guess they would say mind enhancing components, but really it's just like
Hmm,
MCT oil and things that are supposed to create better brain focus. We'll see.
okay.
We'll see how on track I am today, and you can tell me if you think it's working or not. Um,
Okay, sounds good.
but really, this let's move on beyond the caffeine because we've got the caffeine down. That's going to give us our initial eye opening. But I really want guests to see who we've got on today, why I invite you, because I've had people ask if they could be on the show. And this is actually an invitation only show. And there's a reason for that. I'm trying to bring people on who have experience being the deliverer of the technical skill set that they have and have now moved into leadership. And this is a very, very unique situation because let's give you a proper introduction and you guys will tell me if you guys see why he's on today. So Shafayet, you have 24 years of various IT skills and providing IT solutions. You're the go-to talent on IT transformation, secure digital and cloud transformation, SaaS and cloud native solutions. You guys, this is a long list. I'm doing my best here, so bear with me. Some career mile markers are defined by leading by example and delivering several successful innovative products with global reach, execution of both tactical and strategic multi-million-dollar organizational transformations. So you guys, just from that, you kind of know like why I wanted to speak to Shafayet, because I am so big on the whole organizational component of it, not just being a technical expert in this like little zone over here, but having that big macro view of what does your service, what does the service or product you provide do? What's the impact it has? And what does this mean for the overall organization? Additionally, your expertise really focuses on building that bridge between technology and business. So see guys, this is why he's here. We're going to talk about that and how you sell technology strategy to business and finance senior leaders. Definitely want to hear more about that because sometimes they're hard to get through to. And I love the fact that you mentor technology talent and bring them up to speed. And I think, did I do it justice? I tried here.
Oh
What do
yeah,
you
those are all my battle scars, right?
think?
I,
Okay.
I think I think it makes you strong when you have more battle scars than more awards on the shelf, right? Which I have
Hmm.
some, but yeah, I think battle scars really give you those real life experiences. But
Hmm.
thank you, I appreciate that.
Of course, of course. So happy to have you here. And I love to start with these big questions because I think it sets us up for really understanding the breadth of the things you look at
Sure.
as as a leader. But I guess we didn't really touch on your current role. Tell me a little bit about your current role and what people should know about.
Yeah, so I'm heading up a consulting practice called the Brilliance Group, and we've been specializing in the last few years on cybersecurity and really trying to make sense of cybersecurity. A lot of organizations have many tools, many people, but the leaders still stay up at night, thinking to themselves, okay, am I truly secure? How do I really know the hackers aren't getting in? I may have covered my compliance checkbox, but how about actual hacking? Because which is really the real life story.
Right.
So we really work with leaders and their teams in their organizations, regardless what tools or whatnot they have, to really make sense of their overall cybersecurity protection. And we bring that level of thought leadership as well as innovation in perspective of consolidating technologies without getting rid of them, but to provide them a single pane of glass to really understand how well they are secure from the pragmatic sense of hacking, right?
Right.
And I can keep talking, but that's really at the essence to really help you secure your information and your data and your reputation and your business. And we are actually dabbling in some of the newer technologies in place to kind of integrate them with AI and blockchain, et cetera. And so we've got some really awesome stuff under the hood that we're working on. We in the cybersecurity space. So.
Awesome. Super exciting. I know people love to hear about blockchain. And I was reading the other day about blockchain and security and what that's going to look like going forward. So some
Yeah,
big
it's
innovations
exciting.
coming our way. Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
Those are the kind of things that really get me charged up. So
well, that's what I love about my engineering friends. Something like that that gets them going. If we were to speak 3 years from now, so this is my big question, right? If we were to
mm.
speak 3 years from now, oh my gosh, Brittany, it's so great to hear from you. Thanks for calling. What would you love to tell me about that you would have accomplished?
So I think I touched on a few things. I think the primary one would be, what I was just mentioning is that we've used artificial intelligence and blockchain and some level of dabbling in AR as well to kind of figure out a very pragmatic use of these in our services that we're providing, right? And we've got a really awesome, talented team members who are excitingly doing things with these
Mm-hmm.
technologies and really churning out some awesome solutions. And ultimately, those solutions have, and again, I'm thinking 3 years, those solutions have actually made some measurable differences in how we use those technologies in the day-to-day of running business, right? And we're at that sort of that cutting edge, but still not so cutting edge that it's not practical. We're at the practical cutting edge of doing some exciting solutions for our business partners and our clients, etc. And we've got some excited team members in house, really, loving what they're doing. That
Mm-hmm.
would be the ideal 3 years achievement for me.
That's awesome. How would you measure success, or not necessarily success? Tell me about internally. What does Brilliance Group look like 3 years from now, and what's an achievement internally that you're proud of?
Internally from me as a leader, or
Yeah.
internally from the perspective of the company?
You as a leader, but like what's happened inside the company? Have you brought more people on full time, or is it
Yeah,
is it
yeah.
like a profit sharing, or what is meaningful to you as a leader that you want to bring into the organization?
So I think monetary rewards are always nice. I think we need monetary rewards for us to live a satisfied life, right? But
Mm-hmm.
beyond that, when it comes to professional sense, and I'm a big believer in this, you are. So a lot of people say you are what you do, but I reverse it. You do what you are, right? And so you come to work and if that work doesn't align with your passions or your personal values, that work just becomes mundane, right? So one of the formulas that I try to use with all my team members is: are you doing 80% of whatever you're doing, is 80% of what you're doing in alignment with your personal values or passion, and 20% could be something that you don't like to do but you have to do.
Mhm.
It's like life is not perfect, right? In professional life and personal life, we always have to do certain things that we don't like to do. But that 80/20 formula, I personally found that to be a very successful formula for people to be very engaged. So
Mm.
I would say that growing people and having passionate, smart people surrounding me is very important to me. I never like to be the smartest person in the room. And in fact, a former mentor of mine had told me that when you don't want to be the smartest person in the room, that actually makes you the smartest person in the room. Uh, not necessarily from the knowledge perspective, because you're at least self-aware enough to know that you need to surround yourself with that level of expertise and smartness that challenge you. Because when people challenge you, that's when you grow. So personally, I would say that I have built a team that is very passionate. They're very experts, and they're challenging me to grow as well. And I love coming to work on a daily basis with these smart, excited people, because that gets me charged up to continue to do what we do best. And that will also help us be nimble and flexible in the world of technology. Things are always changing, and one of the things why I have all these battle scars and that have led me to successes and failures is because um, when I was not adaptive to the changing situations, I failed. But when I was, I
Mm.
succeeded. But also at the same time, I kind of took the lessons from my failures and kind of tried not to repeat those. And that really has led me to a lot of success. And I want to continue on that and help others understand the same thing, and maybe leave behind a legacy where I have helped others to kind of make those professional jumps in this professional growth as well.
Mhm, mhm. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. I also
Yeah,
love the 80/20 rule, Pareto's principle, and it shows up so many places when you really start to look for it, and
yeah,
when you kind of put structure in place to encourage more of it. Everything from looking at your top clients, right? Like, they're probably providing 80% of your revenue and much less of your time, when
yeah,
you look at it, dollar for dollar. And that is a really great place to start if you're looking for, how do I grow my business? What do I do more of? Right? Looking at that top percent.
yeah,
Um, so let's talk about within what you just described, right? Within what you're looking to do with Brilliance Group. What is the greatest opportunity there? What is the thing that you want to capitalize on, make the most of? Like, what's the opportunity that you're focused on?
yeah, yeah. Um, so some of the opportunities that I am looking at trending today, again, to capitalize upon, is that if you really look at the way we do work is changing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or especially over the last 3 years or so, it has significantly changed how expert talent are seeking that desire of reward, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was actually reading an article the other day where some of these thought leaders were saying that even within the next 2 years or so, expert talent is going to be very much polygamous when it comes to their career. So they will want to work with
Ah,
multiple companies at the same time. Not necessarily the same freelance concept, but they do want to be loyal, but to multiple companies, because they will want to capitalize on the various aspect of their skill set.
yeah.
So that's an opportunity for I think that we would want to leverage to be able to have that global reach and really tap in those expertise and give them those rewards where they might be able to work on multiple different things even within Brilliance, or we can be very much open to them being um, workers or contributors to multiple companies, because I think we can capitalize on that, because their exposure to other organizations or other projects could also actually help us, because they can learn from that and they can bring
Mhm.
that to the work that they do here. So that's definitely an opportunity we want to capitalize on. Um,
What a great perspective. I just want to stop you there. What a
okay.
fabulous perspective compared to what I've heard so much about this great resignation or the talent war. Like all these things that are kind of like these, these win-lose scenarios, right? Everyone's looking
Yeah.
at it as this competitive thing and how do I keep the talent and how do I get more of it, right? Instead of looking at it as, wow, okay, here are these assets. These can actually be shared and it can actually be beneficial to everybody.
Yeah.
It can
Yeah.
elevate everybody. That's a
Yeah.
really wonderful mindset. Thanks
Yeah.
for sharing.
And I think the definition of NDA, a lot of organizations are fearful about NDA, right? They think that, well, if they
Mhm.
share resources, oh, I might lose some competitive advantage. Um, I think I think we need to really think of it by pivoting on its head. If you're really worried about some of your intellectual property being stolen, one, be joyous about that because you've got something that is worth stealing, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's one good thing. And then secondly, if you're really worried about that being stolen or that idea being leveraged somewhere else, put in processes, put in protection around that. That there are ways you can still protect yourself without it being completely, losing your intellectual property. So that whole NDA, I think, and then some of my colleagues are probably going to cast stones at me for what I'm about to say. But I think leveraging this or using this reasoning of NDA and moving away from shared resources is really a crutch to
Mm.
leadership and in their organizational structure, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, so I'll take the stones afterwards.
Right, well, what
um,
you're speaking to also has a cultural component too. And so I see this a lot in organizations where if everything is about like, keep our best stuff locked up and make sure nobody else gets it and like it's them versus us. When we walk around with that kind of mentality or if leadership has like this set of fears that they're really worried about, that is coming through. It's coming all the way through the organization. And
yeah,
it's really detrimental. It's terribly detrimental to your culture. It creates an environment where there's this underlying lack of trust. If you're having all the employees sign these NDAs, then there is this lack
yeah,
of trust that exists. And
yeah,
instead what could we do? We could build trust, we could build rapport, we could build relationship and strength, and that is in turn what creates loyalty to an organization, not
yeah,
legal documents with threats.
right.
And people miss that point, that there's other ways to benefit from your trade secrets or whatever you want to say, your intellectual property. There's other ways to do that, and there's other ways to protect it, and that's by building relationships and strength in your team so that you don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah, yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. So let's talk about what are the challenges that exist there if you're
Mhm.
in pursuit of that opportunity. What are the challenges right in front of you in getting there?
So I think getting the formula right, right?
Mm.
So I think there will be individuals or groups of individuals who will want to take advantage of that, right? And
Mm.
so to really then filter out um, sort of those individuals and bring in the right individuals, because I think
Mm.
one of the things that I've also sort of personally learned from my own mistakes and failures, and you'll hear me talk a lot about my failures because I feel that I've learned tons more from my failures than from my successes, right?
Mhm.
Um, but I think a lot of leaders will say, well, because there's an element of that kind of bad actors or those individuals not wanting to follow, I just don't want to follow that pattern. That's also not the right mindset, right? Just because some people are going to misuse it does not mean that that particular element or framework is bad, right?
Right.
Um, so I think the challenge is going to be just with that one thing, because there are a couple other opportunities that I personally and we as an organization are also tapping into as opportunity areas. But for that particular opportunity, it's going to be that figuring out that formula. How do we ensure that our intellectual property isn't really then misused, right? Or our flexibility of working with that multi or the polygamous talent from a professional sense are not taking advantage of the situation, right?
Mm. Mhm.
So because that's new, right? With everything new, there is going to be certain things that we're not going to get right, and so we'll have to measure that and very quickly pivot so that our mistakes are not taking a long term or not having a long term
Right.
negative effect on us.
Right, right. Really great point. Another challenge too is if you have, I'm assuming that these aren't full-time employees, W-2 employees in the organization. Then, if
Correct.
if you believe in this, polygamous talent model, then that also does put constraints on how much we can do the things that build that trust and that rapport too. So, a lot of culture building type exercises include these one-on-one meetings, check-ins, like the ability to give and receive that critical feedback and that support. But that is less available, generally speaking, in a
True.
1099 format, right? And so
True.
having to be really, really conscious and intentional
Yeah.
about carving out time to also build those relationships and build that trust and build that, loyalty
Yeah.
there, in order to get the outcome that you're looking
Yeah.
for.
I have a little bit of an interesting take on that. Would you like to hear that?
I would love to.
So, a leader cannot build loyalty in their members through management. You cannot build loyalty by managing people. Um, you bring loyalty by giving those individuals a clear picture on how they're making a difference in what they do.
Mm,
So whatever the hard work is, whether it's X number of hours a week or X number of hours a month, if they feel, if they truly feel and see the results of their hard work, that is going to make you want to be loyal to that because it's your baby, right? And your baby, you're seeing your baby flourish, right? um,
mm,
and so that that it's kind of like a parent, right? If you have a baby and you're a parent, you're going to be loyal to your baby, right? I mean, it's biological.
yeah, our
um,
brains are wired that way.
so so um, so loyalty can really be built when you engage your associates and engage your team members into building something and letting them see where the result of their hard work went and letting them celebrate it, right? And
Mm,
and additionally, when they are invested to that degree, if the baby is not doing well, they will be the first ones to jump right in and try to help, right? As opposed to saying getting defensive about it, right?
mhm.
So I think a lot of leaders sometimes tend to miss that element, right?
Yeah, yeah. So that's a really great point. And I guess it's some of it too is how we phrase different things. And one thing I want to add on that is
Please.
leaders, I think, forget too that part of their role is creating purpose and impact within these different positions, because that is basic motivation, right? So
Yeah.
if these things don't exist for a high level like intellectual person, then they're not going to get out of the job what they're looking for, and they will not stick around.
Right.
But additionally, you're right, like the loyalty is not created in a punitive management tactic alone, but it's our job in management to create great job design, right? That drives that there are proper mechanisms in place that create the motivation towards those
Yeah.
things. So
Yeah.
I think so many people view this as, well, this is the job, or like every job's not going to be full of passion and whatever. But I don't agree with that. I think that it really is up to the leadership in the organization to look at these different positions and say, yes, this is a person, this is a programmer, someone's coding, or like a software engineer, but those jobs should not be ignored in this fashion. That there should really be concern around job design, ensuring that there are these components that are fulfilling for people, that align with their values, like you said, that their personal mission and goals at the same time. And those conversations need to be had, and it's not a one-time thing. It's an
Yeah.
ongoing conversation that
Yeah.
happens.
So one of the practical ways we try to do that, um, I'll just use the example of goal setting, just as an
Mm,
example, right? Because we try to do this in many different ways. But goal
sure.
setting. A traditional goal setting is you meet with your manager, you set some goals, and then 6 months, 2 months, 3 months, whatever, X number of months later, you come back and you report on how did you achieve your goals, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's really a one-sided investment. It's it's the investment from the associate or the team member, right?
Mm-hmm.
We do it differently. Goal setting for us is okay. Once we set the goal, we as leadership and the organization need to allow time for that individual to go
Mm-hmm.
get the training if they need the training, right? Then we need to give them space to practice what they learned, right? And here's the net new things. We then need to give them grace to fail the first time because who gets it right the first time, right? We're all human beings. We need to give them grace to fail the first time. And then we need to provide the patience to mentor that individual to help them see what were the causes of that failure. And then we need to give them accountability to try it again and get it right the next time, right? And I think those last two components really are missing in most organizations when it comes to goal setting, right?
Wow. Yes, completely. Completely. I was just um, talking about this, or I guess writing an email back and forth about this morning, that when we don't give the feedback, or when we just kind of, sometimes there's too much space. It's like, here's the goal. Okay, I'll talk with you in 11 and a half months.
Yeah,
And there's no continuous feedback to help drive like the innovation or the iteration around those goals, right? So like I try to change the language, because as much as I want people to embrace failure, the language alone, I think, makes it difficult, the way that we're conditioned and brought up as people
yeah,
here in the society. And so
yeah,
what if it's just an iteration that you're working on, and that your job is to hone it and, improve upon the different components of it, right? But the accountability is so big and is so absent in even excellent organizations that I'm working in. I can't believe how far they've gotten without some of these basic checks and balances. Some people, I think, in management are move away from it and maybe feel like it's punitive or the conversations are uncomfortable. But really, the most loving thing you can do is give people feedback. When I come into an organization, I do a lot of assessment and I'm asking questions and doing interviews. Everybody tells me they want this feedback. I feel lost. Like, I don't know how I'm doing. That should never be a situation. You should never have a team member who has no idea how they're doing. If that's the case, that's a management failing.
right. Yeah, and I think from a leadership perspective, and please stop me if I'm talking too much about a particular topic, but because these are very, I feel passionate about these. You touched on it. A lot of leaders shy away from it because they feel, oh, I don't want to make that person feel uncomfortable. I don't want to make them feel that they're being punished. And I think you're right. It's in the language, but it's also in the culture. So if you, let's say you give them feedback, but then about a month later they see a demotion or they see somebody else who worked less hard than them get
Mm,
promoted, they're going to take it as a punitive thing. Oh, I had that conversation, it must be the result of this. So
mm,
instead, I think, as I said, you give them the patience and mentoring, but then you give them the accountability to say, okay, listen, now we've talked about it. What were the root causes? Here's how this could have been done better. Let's self-reflect. We're gonna let you try it again, and
mm,
let's now this time we're gonna hold a little bit more accountability on you to succeed, right? Because this is going to help you grow, and this is going to help us grow with you. You're helping us grow by helping yourself grow, um, and I think then rewarding them for it, right? So
mhm.
I think that's where, if the feedback and the culture is aligned correctly in that sense, um, feedback can be given very openly, honestly, without that worry about punitive measures, right?
Yeah, right. Very, very good point. Thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
Um, so let's hear about some of those battle scars. I want to, we mentioned that a few times. Let's let the audience know what's going on here. So, tell me about a moment or a situation that created a breakthrough or a moment of insight for you that changed the way that you see either your business or leadership. And usually this comes through moments of challenge, but You tell me. Tell us about a moment that's really changed you.
Yeah. So I think there's a common pattern. It took me a while to kind of understand that pattern of some of my challenges, because and it's really more of a self-imposed pattern. Um, Puzzles. I'll use the analogy of a puzzle.
Mm.
So when I'm faced with a puzzle, no matter what kind, in personal life, professional life, or even just a puzzle that I'm playing with,
A
um,
literal puzzle.
um, I have to solve it, right? I get really stuck on needing to solve it. But then, as I've matured in my thought and in my professional life, what I've really realized is that it's important for me to understand why that puzzle is puzzling to me.
Hmm.
Not so much that I have to reach the end of that puzzle, right? So, um, and I get hung up on that. So I will say, okay, well, why am I having such a hard time with this, right? Um, Solving it, and in my mind, is if I understand why that problem is so problematic to me, if I can understand that, then the solution is going to be very easy, right? Because a lot of times it's the struggle that's more difficult than the ending, right?
Hmm.
Um, so one of the things that I've had to personally condition myself is to say that not all puzzles are worthy of the time and effort it takes for me to figure
Hmm.
out why it's puzzling, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes some puzzles are better off to just let go and say, okay, you know what? That's just puzzling. I'll just let it be. Let me see if I can get somebody else to solve it for me. Or let me see if I can find a shortcut to just solve it. And then we'll figure out why it was puzzling to me
Hmm.
at a later point. Because
Hmm.
not everything, because if you let it bog you down and you sort of allow a smaller item to take so much of your time, and you're trying to gain so much of learning and understanding from that puzzle, that puzzle may just not be worth it, worth that level of effort and time. So that way you can open up your bandwidth, your mental bandwidth, to then truly deal with some of the bigger puzzles that do require more of your bandwidth, right? Um, and so that's been a weakness of mine, and I'll be frank with you, sometimes I still catch myself falling into that trap,
Hmm.
because it's a mental conditioning. But I think the improvement that I've made is to come to those realizations, to say, okay, you know what, hang on a second, is this puzzle really worth the effort that I'm putting into it,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Right, right. It really speaks to one of my favorite sayings, it's even on my website. What got you here won't get you to the next level.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that in this situation is that being an excellent puzzle solver is
Hmm.
what got you here, right?
Right.
You solve problems, you create solutions. It's what you do, and even from that hands-on place, like it probably is a passion. It lights you up. You're super engaged with it, right? It's really rewarding. But
Right.
now, being CEO, growing company requires something very different of you, and not necessarily being in the weeds solving some of those specific problems.
Right. Right. And trusting others to kind of help you along, right? Um, a lot of folks who are self starters, and they built themselves up
Mhm.
through their self elbow grease and whatnot. Sometimes I think they do struggle with getting that, handing over that trust of their professional career to leverage others to help them with, right? So,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I think entrepreneurs tend to really struggle with that a lot, right? Especially in the growth
Yes.
stage.
Yes. Yes. And that's like exactly, I think, why I have a job that I've created for myself, because you can get so stuck in these different points. And when you're in it, it's so hard to recognize from this more macro level that, oh, I need to just shift the way that I'm seeing this, or I need to,
Right,
this is not the best use of my time. I'm creating a
right,
bottleneck here by doing this. But when it is something you know you're great at, or the very service that your organization provides, then it's nice to have like some hands-on moments for it. But I can definitely give you about a dozen examples of when I've caught some of my engineers turned CEOs with their hands rolled up, like in the middle of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Like, no, come back over here. This is your
Yeah.
job now, right? But I've seen other organizations too kind of create time for this for leadership members who maybe aren't doing that that kind of hands-on work anymore. That there are like once a quarter or something, they do these kind of like coding challenges or gaming days or whatever.
Very
Like
important. Yeah.
Google solves it by letting you pick a project and spend 20% of your time on it, you know? So
Yeah.
there's these
Yeah.
other ways to do it, to actually incorporate it and plan for it,
Yeah.
to keep you fresh. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's also actually a key value of myself. And I use an analogy a lot with folks is that let's say you're trying to learn how to fly a plane, right? And you're sitting next to your instructor, and the instructor in the conversation says, "Oh yeah, yeah, the last time I actually flew a plane was like 25 years ago." I think that'll make you pause and say, wait, hold on. I'm about to try and fly this plane with somebody who's not flown a plane before. Should I really be learning from this individual, right? And so it's important that, as a leader, especially in technology, or actually in any profession, is that if you yourself haven't practiced and then you try to lead a company or mentor others, how can they truly trust you, right? Maybe partially. They can trust you partially based on your lessons learned or your leadership values or your personal values or whatnot. But when it comes to the actual technical chops,
Mhm.
they're going to really find a big hole. Um, and you yourself in technology, as a technology leader, if you haven't practiced that technology, how can you authoritatively really speak to it, right? So,
Right.
for me, that looks like, learning, studying a lot, studying about the newer technologies, what frameworks, open source,
Mhm.
this and that and this, and doing some sandboxing. Any more sandboxing and doing proof of concepts or just playing
Right.
around is extremely easy.
Right.
You can do that very safely without failing. And if you fail, that's okay. Google it, get the answers, do something new. And when you overcome those challenges, it makes you feel better. And as well, because you've achieved something and it keeps your hands dirty and warm, and you can speak to those. So
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. This has really been insightful for me. It was so fun to have the conversations around leadership
likewise,
tied into your organization. You've brought some really great insights to the table today. So thanks for being here.
likewise. You're welcome.
How can
Thank
people
you.
find you? If people want to get in touch with you, if they want to learn about
Yeah,
your
I think,
technology.
yeah. So I try to be very active on LinkedIn,
Okay.
only simply because I just don't have the bandwidth for being active on all the various social platforms.
Mm.
So if you want to get in touch with me, please send me a connection request or send me an email. I'm always open to collaborating and speaking to and others and helping others.
Yeah. And I can
Yeah.
speak to
So
that because that's how we met. So he
yes,
does
yes.
respond, folks. Awesome. And so for those of you watching right now, you're probably watching on LinkedIn Live. So you can just click his profile right there and make that happen. If you're not and you're watching this at a later date, or maybe you're watching the post-production version, we're going to make sure that all that information is in the show notes so that you can get in touch with him. Okay, so that is it for our show today. You have given us some eye-opening moments that we need to take back, consider, and figure out how we're going to work that into what we do. Most importantly, I'm going to read more about this new idea of talent assets and looking at the polygamous approach, I guess, to talent assets. And until next time, folks, thanks so much for joining us. I hope you have received some eye-opening moments that you're going to take with you. And until next time, have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.